up, people? It's Dave.
What's up, people? It is Dave, man. What are you doing?
I didn't have an accent.
You've literally never said "What's up, people" in any video or any conversation that's ever happened in your entire life. You just pulled that one right your arse.
That slid right off my tongue like I've said it a million times.
What's up, people?
What's up, people?
What's like, is that like a fucking early 2000s Budweiser commercial? What the fuck is going on here? I haven't heard of this.
What is up, friends of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back for another album review. And for this
greetings and salutations, internet. It's your home slice, Dave.
We're back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Canadian technical death metal band Cryptopsy. The band's new album, As Gomorrah Burns, is out on September 8th via Nuclear Blast.
I'll give you a little factoid right now, Dave. I'm headbanging at the speed of the bass drum on this album. So fast that like a hummingbird's wings, it seems to be statically still. But my neck is getting a full-blown workout right now.
That's my boy Flo. Come on. Formed in 1992, death metal juggernauts Cryptopsy returned to pummel our collective senses anew with their new album As Gomorrah Burns. The band celebrate 30 plus years of extremity and their first album with Nuclear Blast Records. As we were writing the new album, we kept asking ourselves if the music was too dark, too ominous.
As we were writing this album, we kept asking ourselves, is Nuclear Blast going to put this out? Did the check clear? It did clear. Let's go, guys.
Keep going. Says Throatmaster Matt McGeachy. We were unsure that it would fit into the realm of what Cryptopsy had created over the past 20 years. As the songs came together, we saw the melding of darkness and groove bass riffs vibe perfectly within the Cryptopsy sound sphere. We also wanted to let our riffs breathe longer for the first time since None So Vile. We take forever to write and create these moments, so we decided to give them a tad more air and let them be repeated a few more times than we would have in the past. As Gomorrah Burns isn't merely the follow-up to... I keep feeling like I'm saying that really Scottish. As Gomorrah Burns isn't merely the follow-up to EP's The Book of Suffering Tome 1 and The Book of Suffering Tome 2. It's another beast entirely. Crafted over 2 years during the pandemic, the initial sessions took place in the cabin in the forests of Quebec. McGeachy calls the horror-like backdrop surreal, but as with everything Cryptopsy, the songwriting process was expectedly arduous. Donaldson was the primary motivator behind As Gomorrah Burns. The guitarist and producer served as taskmaster and advocate, grinding out his bandmates and McGeachy, Mornay and Pinard 8 slabs of unadulterated barbarity. If Cryptopsy were formidable before As Gomorrah Burns, they are absolutely monstrous now. It sounds like I'm saying that really Scottish, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. You've now got it in your head that you are, but you aren't. Like, it's when you come back to it every time after saying it, it does.
As Gomorrah Burns. The songwriting was fragmented and awful, says McGeachy. We like to destroy ourselves to get to the root of our ideas. You take that and add in some Zoom writing sessions and you get some brutally difficult situations. This album took so long because we simply could not get into a room together. People were all over the place and the songs would sadly sit unfinished for long periods. I am glad that Christian pushed us though, As Gomorrah Burns is some of our best work to date. Conceptually, As Gomorrah Burns pits the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah against the modern-day internet. McGeachy's idea was to show how it's both the birthplace of invention and a cesspool of exploitation. The stories are based on real-life incidences, online stalkers, cults, misinformation, isolation and intimidation. I'm Scottish, but ornamented deviously to enhance their potency.
I would never have known from As Gomorrah Burns.
As with The Unspoken King in 2008 and The Self-Titled in 2012, Cryptopsy enlisted their bandmate Donaldson to helm production, mixing and mastering of the album. Don Grimmard of Ion Dissonance fame also came in to the production fold. So Cryptopsy, Duncan.
Yes.
I've got a lot to say about this, but I'm kind of interested to hear how you got on with this, because I feel like this year Duncan and death metal have become one.
Death Metal Dunk is what they're calling me on the streets, Dave.
To become one, the Spice Girls once
Death
said.
Metal Dunk. Here he comes, rocking his big death metal dick.
Granted, I think you maybe lean more in favour of the more old school sound over the technical stuff.
Yeah, but there is a level here, isn't there?
Yeah, but there have been tech death albums that you have also enjoyed, so I'm kind of interested to hear where you've landed on this one. What's your feelings on As Gomorrah Burns?
Right, let's just put the slate out in front of us here and write on it in chalk.
Okay.
There is a difference between technical death metal and kind of new technical death metal. Right?
Well, this is modern. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's another level above that, and the level above that is like bands like Archspire and stuff like that. They're doing fucking just insane shit with the guitars. And, you know, like, the time signatures are all fucking mental and everything's like... Cryptopsy are a technical death metal band, but they're an accessible death metal band, if you know what I mean. I think they're accessible in that at no point here are you getting things that are out with the realm of reason behind very, very talented death metal musicians. They're not bringing, like... fucking the most detuned guitars you've ever fucking seen to the mix and doing like the weirdest fucking tappy shitty fucking shit like that, right? Yeah. I also think Cryptopsy above all else know how to craft a song that comes in at 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
yes, they do.
A lot of death metal bands seem to struggle with. It's almost as if they don't understand that sometimes more is not more. So yeah, like Cryptopsy, I just feel like have been with us forever. Peek behind the curtain, myself and Dave used to be in a band. What feels like a fucking age ago, back when Gomorrah was burning. Me and Dave were in a band together. As Gomorrah Burns was the name of our band because we're Scottish. No, like back then, I feel like we would try and outdo ourselves in the time it took us to set up our instruments in a practice room, and I did feel like whoever had the new Cryptopsy album first to bring to the room won that game of extreme metal fucking top trumps.
Yeah.
And Cryptopsy have always been in the back of my head as just listening to the drumming. It's always been that way where like whatever you're going to hear here's the most fucking ridiculously fast, insanely fucking like paced, intense fucking delivery of drum hits you've ever fucking heard. But I'll also be honest, I never was the biggest Cryptopsy fan. It was one of those things where I appreciated the technicality involved with it, but I was never like the album holds together really well, or like I can listen to start and finish and not feel like by track 2 or 3 I've kind of ticked all the boxes of what the album's going to deliver, and the rest of the songs are just variations on a theme. But you are right in saying that this year, I would say, since we've actually come back doing Metal Epidemic, death metal's been hitting and charting a little bit better with me. This year in particular, it's been exceptional. And in a year where we've had some of the best examples of the kind of that old school savage death metal sound, like something in between, which is kind of like a new version of the old school sound.
Yeah.
And in a year where on a more kind of technical, slightly more progressive side, the death metal scene has really elevated itself. It was always going to be an interest. This is a long intro, but I was always going to be interested to see where Cryptopsy were going to fall into the mix. I think we mentioned it on the recent podcast. This album was coming out like sandwiched amongst like insane death metal releases. We still got Cannibal Corpse to come, and that is near weeks away. And it's how you stand out in that crowd as a band, and this is how you do it. This album is fucking great. And let me tell you for why.
Tell me.
I think this is like the first album of theirs that I just synced into really, really, really quickly. And I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. I think above all else, the technique is still incredible. Like, a band like this at 30 years on should not sound, 1, as tight, 2, as ferocious, and 3, quicker than bands that are 20 years younger than them. I just don't get that. I don't get that at all. It's difficult not to be in awe of the drumming. I have to stress that all the way through this. It is fucking relentless. For about, I mean, there's a reason the album's not 35 minutes in length. You know what I mean? It's because he's no legs left. Like, it's just so fucking fast. The bass drum work, the snare work on this is like face melting. But what I loved about this is the guitar work itself is not pretentious at all. It exists in that kind of old school death metal range, but it has all these moments, a lot of flurries and flourishes, particularly in the solo work, which are just jaw-droppingly good. And then added to the mix, fucking huge grooves in this album. Like, where everything cuts out, you just get you're like, oh no, like get almost Pantera.
Yeah.
You're like, where are we going with this? And they do that quite a bit, where things all kind of cut out or slow right down, and the guitar's just like, just fucking hit that bell. Like, let's just fucking get into this. I think the track I heard first from this was Flayed the Swine, which was a single, and came out during a busy week of singles. I remember listening to it just going, this is fucking nuts. And I wasn't sold on it, if I'm honest. It's like, of all the tracks, it's the one that kind of feels like most in that kind of techie death metal range. It's mostly because there's tons of fucking code switching on it, lots of little kind of like guitar kind of like work where you're like, whether Flight of the Bumblebee shit like kicking off. Actually, in the placement of the album, it is perfectly placed, because the 2 tracks either side are much more conventional in terms of their execution. So it's the one that allows you to break things up a little bit, go a little bit different, but then bring it right back in. The album kicks off absolutely ferociously with track 1, a title that I won't pronounce, and then like beasts you. I mean, this one like might as well be like packing a big 10-foot rubber dildo and asking you to part your cheeks. That's track number 2, which I will also not pronounce. Track 3 is the one where I first got the idea of, like, this is an album that's calling it spots. This is Babe Ruth, not all the way through. Like, groove riff, like that, fast as fuck bit. Like, you mean, like, and it just continues doing that through Ill Ender, Flayed the Swine, The Righteous Lost are just a great collection of, like, tracks 4 through 6 is just a great collection right in the middle. It closes really fucking strong as well. The longest track on here is the last track, which is Praise the Filth and not the Fifth, which I keep getting muddled up with. And it's the one that's maybe, in a lot of respects, the most traditional death metal song on the entire album. But it sounds fucking huge, as this whole album does. Just sounds absolutely massive. If they were struggling to get this album done because of Zoom and all the rest, I'm going to say that it doesn't sound it. This sounds cohesively tight as fuck, singular of vision. The tracks flow really, really well. The actual construction of the album works. Vocally, I adore this. This guy's tone is just the tits, man. I love it. He's got that really guttural deep thing, but he'll switch up into a kind of more mid to kind of lower register for delivery of impact, and it works in the mix. Production is c'est magnifique. That's for my French Canadian speakers out there, which I don't know if Cryptopsy are, so if you aren't, I apologise in advance. But it's incredible as well. Yeah, I think this might be the first Cryptopsy album front to back that just has landed with me really, 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 really well. I'm currently in a death metal renaissance in terms of listening. There's very little death metal I've heard this year that I haven't actually liked. So there might be a bit of that my brain's just more attuned to their wavelength. But I'm curious to see where you land on this one, because I think there's very little, if anything, I can pick fault with at all on this album. But I'm not like staunch in the fucking trenches as Gomorrah Burns. You know what I mean? Whereas you have been like Cryptopsy almost for life. Got that tattoo above your belly that says Cryptopsy.
Yeah.
Which I thought you were getting up to shows, and I'm glad you didn't. It's drawn on with Sharpie. So yeah, I'm curious to see. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this album. Where are you on this? Like, the grand pantheon of Cryptopsy albums, is this among the top tier? Is this a mid-range one? Did it let the side down, Dave? Questions all to yourself.
It's a lot of questions, and I will do my best to answer those questions.
Every single one of them, or I'm leaving.
Cryptopsy, yeah, I've been listening to Cryptopsy for what feels like a fucking lifetime now. Got into them around the late 90s with None So Vile. And as a drummer myself, I just kind of fell in love right there and then with Big Flo Mornay on drums. He is a master, like, behind the drum throne. I even owned his extreme metal drumming DVD that he released back in the day when DVDs were still a thing. So that goes to show you, that was my level of commitment with Big Flo. I was buying his DVDs imported from America, nonetheless.
Yeah. Which means they weren't cheap, and Dave back then wasn't in a well-paid job.
No.
So
no.
Dave went hungry for a week, but was kept nourished by Flo's instructional video.
Which I had to hack my DVD player so it played American DVDs.
I think he missed a trick. What was the name of the instructional video? Like, Go With The Flow? Because if it wasn't called that, I think you missed a trick.
Extreme metal drumming.
Yeah, like
that's
exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah. I suppose they're not a band that rattle out releases every couple of years either. We've only had 2 EPs in the last 11 years. No full lengths, 2 EPs, that is it. So this one was always going to be a release that I was really keen to hear. I enjoyed the EPs, even though I'm not an EP guy, but I was hoping in some respects that the album would kind of give us more of that intensity that the EPs delivered, but just, a kind of full-length version of that. And it does. Holy shit, it does. This album fucks, ladies and gents. This album fucks fire. It burns, actually.
Burns like Gomorrah.
It does indeed. In fact, the album just bursts into flames in the first few seconds, and it doesn't stop.
The bass drum is so fast. Like, it's like a computer trying to play this speed would struggle.
Computer couldn't keep up.
No,
not at all. That flame just does not quit. It does not stop burning until the very last second of this album. It just rages from start to finish. But as intense as it is, they've been very clever about this. They've given us an album that actually doesn't come with the mental burnout that a lot of these fire analogies here, but that a lot of tech death albums actually come with.
Yes, Dave. You're turning slowly agreeing with Duncan here.
It's super technical. It's very intricate and it's detailed. But these crafty vets have carefully threaded these songs together with enough kind of subtle shifts that it doesn't feel draining at all. I got to the end of this and I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this again. Like, just fucking start that album once more. It's very, very smartly pieced together, especially as the album goes on as well. I have to agree with you. I think, lengthwise, this is absolutely spot on. 33 odd minutes, man. This is awesome. Not a track that is excessive in length at all. The last track, as you said, is the longest track at just under 6 minutes. So the tracks never get to the point where they start to feel like they're becoming too long. There's also just so much going on the album. There's so much detail that every time I listened to it, I was like, there was another riff that I missed the last time, and I was like, whoa, where did that come from? I never spotted that. Or a transition or a drum lick that I was just like, oh wow, that was fucking awesome. Because the playing from the full band on this is just ridiculous. This is top level tech death. These guys, they've obviously been at it a long time, and it shows massively on this album. You can hear the experience just oozing out of this album. Everything is just so meticulous, so well placed. and utterly seamless throughout the album. The way they shift between the different kind of segments of this album, between the different tempos, the grooves and the blast, everything is just so fluid. Every track had like a riff or a shift into something that is just so grotesquely heavy and dissonant. And from a riffs point of view alone, it is everything that I wanted and more. I shook my head in disgust in the best possible way throughout this album. It's so punishing, but it's actually super memorable as well, which you don't get a lot of with tech death stuff. A lot of this stuff just kind of flies over your head and you're like, well, that was cool, but I'll never remember any of that. This album wasn't like that. Even though it's highly technical in places, there's loads of parts and riffs in this that were stuck in my head afterwards. Especially a lot of those end sections where they tend to get really slow, really chunky at the end. Those bits were just awesome. Huge props to Christian Donaldson, who delivers some of his best guitar work that I've heard from Cryptopsy. It sounds like the work of multiple guitarists, to be honest. But the fact this is just one guy, it's kind of mind blowing. The ideas and the kind of the way it's all been put together is really well done. There's also a really nice kind of selection of kind of discordant melody from the guitars as well, and you get that from the first track. And those sections are a really clever and subtle way of just bringing the relentlessness of the track down a little, but without it losing any of that kind of malicious tone. I think the way they've placed those sections throughout the album are a great way of just kind of subtly giving you a little bit of a breather and a slight change in tone as well. I think having that Flayed the Swine track in the middle was also a genius move.
Yeah.
I think it starts a little slower with just the drums having a bit more focus. And there's also a bit more kind of like lead work and a solo to kind of break things up. Same with Obesient. It's a bit more of a kind of slow burn start, which is again slightly darker. The chords I've used, and it slightly gives it a slightly different feel from some of the other tracks. Some of the riffs were quite ominous on that one, which was really cool. You also get some of that kind of menacing kind of melody coming through on The Righteous Lost, and I think that against the kind of visceral kind of technicality of the track makes it really stand out even more. I think the balance is perfectly weighted to give you this like blistering fretwork against this dark melody, and then there's a kind of melody in the solo as well, and then you've also got Matt's kind of high-pitched, almost tonal screams in there as well, which brings me on to Matt. I think he's a phenomenal death metal vocalist.
It's unbelievable. Like the consistency across this entire album is like jaw-dropping. Like veterans of death metal, vocally your register should change. You get into, like, you fill in Selmo, you get deeper. Some reason he's still able to hit mid-range stuff without much of a push, like at all, and the ferocity of it is just as intense as anything guttural. It's like it's the same output. It's all technique, man. That is 100% technique.
I think he's got a great kind of array of vocal extremities on the album, different pitches that he uses throughout the album depending on the intensity of what's going on around them. Again, like your George Gallagher's or your Corpse Grinder Fishers, he's very guttural and quite percussive as well. But I think that just kind of adds to the attack of the music. He also loves to kind of let rip with these like big high pitched screams as well, which would just kind of cut through glass. But I think he did a fantastic job on this album. I need to talk about Flo. I just need to talk about Flo for a second because he's almost 50 years old, right?
That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense, right? I'm fucking 8 years younger than him, and if I sneeze, I fart, right? That's how fucking that's how wrecked I am, right? And this, like, no.
I know. He sounds like he's getting better. He sounds like he's becoming more accomplished over like every album, which I didn't think was possible. But his timing and his precision is just unbelievable on this album. He's also one of the kind of the main anchors for a lot of the transitions on the album as well. They often use a drum fill or a stab to kind of switch direction, and they do that a lot throughout the album, and it's done with a level of playing that you only get from a kind of vet like flow. That being said, I think the bass work from Oliver is also really fucking good as well, because you get these little moments where these little licks come in, like on the Righteous Loss, which are really fucking cool. And it's nice to hear him getting a little bit of space in the mix to do his thing and add that, another layer of that kind of technical precision to the mix. The drum production though is fucking immense on this. I mean, as a drummer, it's something I kind of pick up on a lot on albums, and this one I was just totally kind of zoned into it. It could be my favourite drum production from Cryptopsy to date. It is super tight, really punchy. The drums have still got a kind of nice natural ring to them as well. But I think the actual sound of the drums on this is just so fucking cool. Christian's been doing a lot of production work over the last kind of number of years when he's not been doing Cryptopsy stuff, and you can hear the quality of his work has just gotten better and better over the years, and he's knocked it out of the park on this one. I think this album as a whole sounds fucking devastating. The mix is perfect. The tones are stunning. The guitars just sound nice and thick and meaty. It's just a really nice production from all aspects, really. In terms of death metal and technical death metal, I think this album is exquisite. This is fucking awesome. The songwriting is excellence. The tracks are just executed with enough variation and shifts that keep you engaged the whole time. And Cryptopsy have given us an album that delivers the kind of essence of what the band have always been about, but in a way that sounds fresh and easily competes with the kind of current wave of tech death bands in 2023. I fucking love this, and like this is coming out the same week as Dying Fetus, which initially I was like, oh fuck, really? In the same week? Well, I don't know about that. But I really like Dying Fetus, but I think this one is above that. Loved it.
There's a I've said it before, there's something in the water right now. I don't know if it's just like, who are these young bastards? And like that, I just feel like all these bands with like 30 years under their belts, for whatever reason, have just decided to release the best work in like the last decade of their existence this year, and all within a couple of months of each other. It's just nuts. I don't see this slowing down. I honestly think we've got Cannibal Corpses like mere weeks away, and I get the feeling that as soon as that gauntlet dropped, they releasing their previous album feels like they have opened the door for every band, every death metal band who hasn't put out an album in a few years to release some of the best work they've ever done. It's fucking jaw-dropping.
So, last thing, ratings for As Gomorrah Burns by Cryptopsy. Duncan, what's your score?
So, this took a bit of toing and a froing for me. Ultimately, I'm coming in at a 4.5. Right, now there's a reason I'm coming in at a 4.5. My question that I asked myself was, did, like, in the tech death metal scene, the big standout album this year is Cattle Decap, right? So, did I enjoy this as much as Cattle Decap? I would actually say I enjoyed it a little bit more. I know it's kind of sacrilegious to some people out there. I think that I like a little bit more of the kind of stripped back, direct blunt force trauma approach of Cryptopsy. That being said, though, I do appreciate both albums are fucking exceptional, and as a result of that, I'm going to give it the same grade that I gave Cattle Decap, because I think it's just as good, which is a 4.5 for me. I know that you scored Cattle Decap higher. And if you think this is on par with that, I imagine Dave is giving out his second 5-star review of the year.
I do think this new Cryptopsy album is as good as the Cattle Decap album for completely different reasons. I think they're both within the same genre, but both doing different things. I think Cattle Decap are more in a kind of death grindy kind of vibe.
100%.
They've obviously got that kind of more kind of tonally type thing there as well. But Cryptopsy, on the technicality side, this is flawless. This is like Mortal Kombat, fucking flawless victory, finish him, fucking end move. This is what this album is, and it just
friendship end move. Friendship. Remember friendship. I didn't make that up. That was like in the third game or the fourth game, you could finish someone with a fatality, which was a friendship fatality. they're still making those games.
Yeah. No. So I'm going to hand out the glorious 5 stars for the new Cryptopsy. Awesome album. Loved it. Just one of those albums that when it finishes, I'm like, I want to listen to that again. And I will be listening to it again and again for the rest of the year. It comes out on September 8th on Nuclear Blast. Links below to the band and the pre-order as well. Let us know what you think. Have a listen to the singles. Once you've heard the album, drop some comments in below. Let us know what you think. That is our review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.